talking of lines of dialogue that got me into film, we're going to move on to one where Bobby Carlyle sort of waking up in a drunken stupor and shouting "Fanny" at the TV was enough to sell me at the start of a film. And that's Once Upon a Time in the Midlands. Scott, I believe that you're going to tell us about that.
Yes, Once Upon a Time in the Midlands. So what if a Western was set in Nottingham and was also a rom-com? Well, that's an odd question, you weirdo, but it turns out we have an answer in Meadows' 2002 joint, Once Upon a Time in the Midlands. The stranger from out of town in this case is Begbie, or, well, Robert Carlyle's Jimmy, who has seen the love of his life, Shirley Henderson's Shirley, turn down a televised proposal from her current boyfriend, Rhys Evans' Deck. So affected is he by this that he abandons his fellow gang members, headed by James Cosmo's Billy, when a clown robbery goes wrong. It may or may not have been official clown business. Hard to say. Fleeing the cops and eventually his gang, he tries to inveigle his way back into Shirley's life and that of his daughter, much to Deck's discontent. He's seemingly far too soft to stand up to Jimmy's hardman act and suffers a collapse of self-esteem. Much of the film is then focused on Deck's building up his courage to confront Jimmy and save his relationship with Shirley, which is perhaps also echoed in the strained supporting relationship between Jimmy's foster sister, Kathy Burke's Carol, and Ricky Tomlinson's Charlie. Now, like a lot of Meadows' work, Once Upon a Time in the Midlands is not exactly over-encumbered with plot, this having more or less the minimum viable frameworks to bounce a few characters together, and I suppose it works well enough for what it needs to do. While it does have more than a few moments of emotional and dramatic heft, for the most part it's kept fairly light and breezy, and makes for an enjoyable, if not life-changing or genre-redefining experience. Carlyle and Henderson come out of this the best, really portraying a fairly believable experience and getting across the reasons for their previous attractions and breakups well enough through small actions and reactions rather than through exposition dumps. Rhys Evans' Deck is rather less well served and perhaps a touch too broadly written and played, but I suppose that rather goes with the territory. Overall, I'm not sure there's an awful lot more to meaningfully say about Once Upon a Time in the Midlands. It's a reasonably enjoyable comedy that refreshingly eschews the mawkishness that similar works like Brassed Off and The Full Monty arguably tended towards, if my memory serves, and you and I know there's no guarantee that it does. Worth watching, but by no means the most vital part of Meadows' body of work. A left shin, perhaps.
Yeah, this was one conspicuously left out of our Once Upon a Time episode of a couple of years ago for this.
Yeah.
Which is probably fine. I don't think it fits in with most of those other things. Yeah, I had a good time with this. I don't think it's saying an awful lot, but sort of as a kind of slice of life thing with some believable characters, it works tremendously well. What I particularly appreciated was the relationship in particular between Kathy Burke's character and Ricky Tomlinson's character.
Yeah.
That sort of slightly complicated family that absolutely exists.
Yes.
That they're married, but they're sort of acting like they're not married, but they're still friends, and they live very close to each other, and like those sort of things exist. Though humans are complicated, people have relationships like that. You tend not to see them in films.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's quite refreshing to see something like that on film and portrayed in a way that's absolutely believable.
Yeah.
How does this work? I don't know. They make it work. That's what people do.
Yeah.
But it's believable that there's clearly tenderness between Kathy Burke and Ricky Tomlinson. Their characters feel like, yes, they care for each other. It's a complicated relationship. Okay.
The way that they so clearly infuriate each other in the way that only the person you love the most can possibly do to you. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And it's a real strong suit of Shea Meadows films that these characters feel like real people. Yeah. They don't feel like film constructs. Yeah. They don't feel like they're delivering dialogue that no human would ever speak. Yeah. While such dialogue can be incredibly compelling, incredibly interesting, incredibly satisfying to hear, it's also very much incredibly not what an actual human being would say to another human being. Yeah. Whereas Shea Meadows films very conspicuously are the opposite of that. So yeah, I guess it's slight, but it's a slice of life film of a life that is quite interesting and quite real. Yeah. Also, Shea Meadows has found the trick to making Shirley Henderson's voice even vaguely tolerable, which is to force her to not use her own accent and to use a Midlands accent. If she tries a sort of Southern English accent, she's also intolerable. She uses her own accent from Five, intolerable. She's that horrible breathy squeaky thing which goes through me. And that's maybe my voice would go through her. that's fine. That's not the problem. It's just like, I find her voice difficult to tolerate, but here she's absolutely fine. And to be fair to her, she's really done a great performance, and she does a lot with responses. Kind of like you said, Scott, when she's realising how bad Jimmy is for her. There's no expository dialogue or anything. It's her reaction.
Yeah.
When he's just like sitting his bum in that chair drinking beer saying, "Oh no, you're doing a fine job, you can do this all yourself."
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that.
It didn't prompt like a 5-minute speech of, "You don't appreciate me for what I did." It's like, it's very obvious about all that kind of stuff that doesn't need to be signposted.
From that reaction shot of her, of just her face falling, basically. Like, you understand that she, at least physically and maybe emotionally too, had some sort of feelings for him still. That it wasn't her choice to end that relationship. He just sodded off. But then you realise that, oh wait, no, things are not as they were in my memory.
Yeah,
and it's all in her face. It's a really great performance. Other bits of note that I'm quite amused by, which are largely hair based, which is Ricky Tomlinson's literal hat hair. That really made me chuckle for some reason when he lifted his cowboy hat and all the hair came off with it. And obviously Shane Meadows' bingo wig. Why did he stop appearing in his film with terrible wigs?
I think I saw Shane Meadows' bingo wig when we were supporting the Sex Pistols back in 77. Hell of a band.
Does sound like a band, doesn't it? Shane Meadows' bingo wig. Or actually, do you know what it sounds like? It's the sort of pub quiz name we would have come up with in the past. Yeah, but what is strange about this film, though, is kind of how they suggest that the characters are in terms of their merits and how they're actually portrayed. Because Jimmy, he's a criminal, general asshat, and Reese Ifans' Deck, while he's not given as much of the room to breathe as a character as Jimmy. It's like, he's a loving partner, he's a business owner, but one of these people beats up clowns and the other has a car that they have named, and additionally the name of that car is Baby. One of these people is performing laudable community service and the other is a menace to society, and it's perhaps not how you'd expect that to be.
Said clowns that were beaten up, I think there's 3 of them, and apparently 2 of them are Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer.
Yes,
which is very strange.
When they beat up the clowns at the start too, there's a clown I thought, that looks really like Bob Mortimer.
Yes, it was.
Not in a way like I think that's Bob Mortimer. So yes. Oh, that looks like Bob Mortimer. And then you get to the end credits and they show you, oh wait, that was Bob Mortimer. That was very weird, but very much appreciated.
Yes.
I haven't seen this film.
Fair enough. But you probably should. You're probably not going to go wrong with any of these Shane Meadows films, bar the first one, Craig. For any that you haven't got around to seeing yet.
Hi.